My name is Thomas Lee and welcome to my presentation on reflections on the numeracy and literacy test. So, to begin with the presentation, I will now unpack the learning intentions and success criteria. So the good old learning intentions and success criteria that you'll understand for my presentation is that you will gain a key understanding of the sequential steps of the importance of literacy and numeracy over multiple standpoints and how did they be used and how are they applied through different standpoints from literacy and numeracy perspectives. And also from the learning intentions you will get through this presentation is not only do I reflect from the test that I've recently been asked to do from Ms. Lundy Goff, the amazing professor, I will evaluate and provide key research evidence to conclude that my argument, without students' language acquisition to understanding the key questions, the key answers, the key questions that lead to the key answer, is stemmed through language acquisition. And the language acquisition, which I will go through this presentation, which hopefully that you understand that language is the key to understand the content knowledge. And by the end of this presentation, to conclude with the success criteria, I will conclude that rebuilding students' language acquisition, rebuilding students the understanding, the improvement of vocabulary and construction of grammatical structures will lead to success. A success to create a vision to learning, to students learning, so that they can successfully be able to reassess the ideas and understand the content knowledge being given to students. So, step one within the assessment. So I have conducted the numeracy and literacy test and I've done reasonably okay. I've done to the point where I have understood what the question's been asked me, and the language being used within the context is what was, since I've done in the past, so I've been literate there because of my past tense, it was quite arduous in some contexts because there are some questions in particular that asked me a synonym of a particular word, and now I need to use my own knowledge of the language acquisition, meaning that my own understanding of how language is being used, so how does the word being used in different contexts, I have to figure out within the sentence they've given me, what is the closest and possible synonym that reflects the ideas of the sentence being given to me. And so to reflect critically, I think that it took me a reasonable number of steps to understand and demonstrate my understanding of what the sentence is being provided to me. And so that also is carried out to mathematical questions as well. The idea that each question from the mathematical perspective is understanding what is the question being asked me, what is the scenario, what is the context, what environment and what kind of mathematical formulas are they asking me to conduct and to analytically provide, and what are sequential steps for me to evaluate my understanding of what the problem solving type of question is being asked me. So language, I think, and I could argue, and I want to argue, is that being able to comprehend the question within the context being asked is a skill, and that many students in that schools, the majority of students do fail on this is because the context of the question being asked. So step two, I think I've been reflecting on this. I've pretty much done step two, but really relating the reflections what I've done before, I'm going to relate to the definitions of what literacy and numeracy is. So to reiterate, my understanding of literacy and numeracy, literacy is the ability, the confidence and willingness to engage with language. I'm just gonna circle the word language here. To inquire, construct and communicate meaning. Oh, that's not a great line. In all aspects of daily living. And secondly, numeracy. Researchers from Akara in Maryland suggest that numeracy is the ability to demonstrate students' capacity to use logical approaches, knowledge and logical skills through problem-solving skills as part of the learning, continuing practice to make connections to mathematical concepts towards context. And the reason why I've circled and highlighted because it doesn't look great, is that I want to highlight and emphasize the meaning of to communicate, construct meaning, and highlight the logical approaches of building and communicating that meaning from a mathematical standpoint and linguistical, literal, being literate, the standpoint of being literal. So as I reflect on my personal performance test, I think I've shown the ability to see and navigate how does literacy and numeracy language mechanism, so the use of words, the use of the sentences, the use of the question being asked of me, I understand the defining factor for me as a student to comprehend and make links into varying contexts. And so I believe that to create a vision for learning for my personal performance test, one of the defense mechanisms for excellence in teaching that researchers have suggested from Wiggins and Rich in 2011, literacy and numeracy describes as the basic understanding of language and questions how students apply their learning effectively into different contexts. Different contexts suggest that there are different underlying meanings and myths. Different contexts meaning there are different types of scenarios that students will be asked. And so there will be play on words. There'll be words that students need to differentiate and really accumulate the understanding of how are words being used into different scenarios. What kind of words do they describe what the question is being asked of them? And so it goes back to the idea from my presentation of understanding language acquisition. Language acquisition being defined from numerous researchers from Kara and Ludwig. They have suggested that language acquisition, meaning that acquisition defined as the ability to do something. Language is language is derived from vocabulary, grammar, not just enunciation of words, but understand the context of the language being used. The importance of language from literacy and numeracy standpoint is the instigating factor. And the factor is that through linguistical engagement with the construction of mathematical knowledge, the construction of mathematical formulas and how it's being used through the steps, how it's been calculated, how did it logically and analytically demonstrate their own findings and from the calculations towards a particular problem solving that students have to do. And so I believe that through the 6 facets as written from Nakara, that having the ability to interpret, explain, apply, develop perspectives, and gaining knowledge of a given topic or concepts, to do these skills, students in particular need to know and create their own sense of meaning of the language being asked of them. So that's why I will highlight here that the defense mechanisms, oops, that doesn't look great. I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to rub that out. I'm just going to highlight with yellow. The defense mechanisms, meaning that the key tools from the pocket, from students' get-go, to provide a defense force of bricklaying of ideas, bricklaying of meanings, bricklaying of contextual language accumulation from words, and then the understanding of what it means, the context of how words are being used, both mathematically and through literacy. These defense mechanisms act as support and defend students' ideas to navigate them through the basic understanding of the language being used through a mathematical context and through texts that students will be asked to demonstrate their skills on. And so these 6 facets here from the Nakara, interpret, explain, apply, there should be a comma there, sorry, and accumulation of knowledge. If a student does not understand what the word's being used, for example, if there's a question that has a word that means eradicate, if I don't understand the word eradicate through the sentence of Stephanie has eradicated 65 lollies in her bag, and she's now armed with a significant number of lolly bags. Explain why does the person, how does the person gain more lolly bags, for example. And so if I do not know the word in eradicate, then that defense mechanism will not protect me and act as support for me as a student to create meaning of the sentence that being asked of me and the sentence that I have created as an example for. And so to understand the key concepts, to understand the key given topics and the knowledge, accumulation knowledge, without the importance of language, without the importance of how language works, how to create meaning from the language of literacy and numeracy standpoint, then students won't be able to demonstrate the skills that the teacher will expect of them, but then the lesson or through the assessments, the formative and summative assessments that the teacher will ask them. And so step 3, it explains what your performance tells you about yourself as a teacher. So my responsibility as a teacher in the secondary sector is to provide continuous attention of building these general capabilities to a high degree of learning. And to promote that higher degree of learning is to create a vision. And the vision for me as a teacher of literacy, if I need to promote literacy and numeracy, is evangelizing and creating the idea of in order for students to embellish and to develop the core skills of reading and writing and listening and responding logically and analytically, all these skills are developmental skills. The basic skills, the basic general capability that's been neglected is the words and the language being conveyed for the student to enable them to read, to enable them to write and comprehend, to listen what the words create and meaning to them, and how do they respond to the meaning of the words being asked of them. Without construction of meaning, without any sense of understanding what the content is being asked of them, then the skills of being logically and being analytically being into play as the notion for literacy and numeracy will not support students' measures of their own learning. And so therefore, me as a teacher, myself, it is my sole responsibility to create these ideas, these core skills. I will argue that there needs to be supportive measures of language acquisition towards differential learning so that students are able to create this sense of readiness to draw their own learning achievement from these general capabilities. And so researchers have suggested from Tomslin that literacy is the ability to read and write and speak and listen. Numeracy, with the aid of since we're in the 21st century now, with the aid of technology and other sorts of resources now, is a benchmark to convey, comprehend, and create use of ideas and compelling facts and opinions that resolves problems based on the language being demonstrated. And so, numeracy and literacy is the defining factor, the basic defining factor in all schools, aside from mathematics, aside from English and other subjects. Literacy and numeracy are general capabilities to ensure and support students' recognition of words, recognition of grammatical structures, recognition of context, the use of context, the words within context, the structure of the context, the content, and being able to interpret key ideas from evaluating through analytically deriving the knowledge through the subject that they are asked to do, literacy and numeracy is argued as a supportive measure for students to draw out their readiness to understanding what the subject, whatever subject they're learning, whatever content knowledge they're asked to do, they're asked to learn, or they're wanting to learn, will make much more sense for them. Which goes to the final step: explain how we can use this information to enhance your discipline. Numeracy being used in humanities and Japanese. Humanities and Japanese underlie and stem from literacy and numeracy. I will argue, yes, it does embody a continuum of learning, and it is through my teaching practice to evolve a target to anchor students understand the sentence structure and the vocabularies that is present in the reading extracts from Japanese and humanities. Because humanities, there's a glossary of terms, there's a contextual analysis of key readings and key definitions of societal structures. Students are asked to define what the Nile River is and what it contains, and there's also vocabularies that the Nile River has, the use of rivers and technology that Egyptians or different types of historical aspects they use. Vikings within the Dark Ages, or the medieval ages. Every historical aspect have different vocabularies and different grammatical structures to convey meaning of the students' learning, or convey meaning of what the students will be learning, to be put into clearer perspective. So to be clear and to simply put on this, what I also need to mention is that Japanese as well is a foreign language. The ability to use your mother tongue and to learn a language that cross-links from your mother tongue to understand how language works, how the language structure is being expressed through different other means of communication throughout the whole world, into different contexts, in the business setting, in a casual setting, in a friendly setting, in all sorts of contexts. Japanese as well as a foreign language, there are key terminological phrases and contexts, as I said before, supported with visuals, to establish the understanding of what the writings and key translations that students will be asked to embody. What do researchers suggest? So Ludwig 2000 proposes that inside the common capabilities, particularly developing students' literacy, reflects that the different qualities of social, innovative, social, phonetic, and financial settings of which it shapes apart. So the shape being interpreted here is that the shape of students' literal sense and numerical sense is an act to encourage learning that embodies the shape of academic improvement. And so therefore, from organizing and being able to consistently advance proficiency and also provide proficiency through literacy and numeracy, makes an evolutional approach that will act as an instrument to advance viable communication of interpreting the meaning, the hidden meanings, and the hidden context of what students are asked to do. And so to conclude, success criteria, there are all these references being asked and not being asked, sorry, that's being researched by me. I have argued that the shape of languages will enable the success for learning that will act as a resource that provides a preposition, the repositioning of students' understanding of the knowledge through different accumulation of ideas that will hopefully in the future of assessments will reshape students' understanding through the instruction of the teacher, from the instruction of the teacher that will embody systematic approaches and modules for not only for the gifted and intelligent students, but also different students with other learning capabilities to achieve excellence in teaching. And so what I've done here, do you see that language being conveyed here? How I can join the sentences together. I have the ability to recognize how words are being used into context. I've fully recognized how the language, not just the English language or any language being expressed through research perspective, through analytical perspective, through an academic perspective. I have put an academic approach as a future teacher to convey meaning. And hopefully from this presentation that you will gain that, to conclude, language acquisition, the use of languages, there is it unlocks potential skills of interpreting, evaluating, analyzing, and all sorts of other developmental skills that students will be asked to do to enhance their learning continuum through literacy and also numeracy across the curriculum. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope that you will gain some valuable insight. How does literacy and numeracy, through different standpoints, will act as a significant tool to embody students' further understanding of their accumulation of ideas and the accumulation of the content knowledge. But not just the content knowledge, but the meaning of the content knowledge, so that they can reshape and reform their ideas and make sense of their own learning. Thank you very much.